anti-bullying programme, says he hopes his guide will help organisations to make changes which will protect staff and students from homophobic attacks. He's been speaking to Alicia.
It's life-saving, essentially, and I know that for having travelled around the world for the last 10 years, training in schools, speaking to young people in schools, and being told by people that I've met along the way about brothers and sisters and fathers and sons and colleagues and uncles and aunts that aren't here anymore. And they aren't here anymore because of prejudice and bullying. So LGBT plus inclusion work in schools, for me, has the potential to save lives. You know, prejudice and bullying of any kind is not right and it's not acceptable. And back in 2009, when I was working as a London primary school teacher, we discovered in our primary school that 75% of our primary age pupils were experiencing daily homophobic bullying in language. 98% of them were hearing the use of the word gay as a negative word, as a cuss, if you like. And faced with that data, I had to act. That's my core duty as a school leader, to prevent that kind of thing from happening. How do we prevent it? With LGBT plus education.
And for you, as having been in a school, I know you're not teaching at the moment, but previously, how important was it to you to have those conversations with school children, and how did you notice it changing them?
Oh, it was hugely important, and it really gave them a sense of permission, because I don't know if you're old enough to remember Section 28, which was a piece of legislation under the Margaret Thatcher's government in the 1980s when I was at school, which essentially precluded education professionals from even acknowledging that lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people existed. And that fear of Section 28 to some extent still exists. So when I started working in my own school, when I first told everybody in the school that we were working to prevent that level of bullying in my own school, and I actually came out to my school community back in 2009, there was a sense of relief and a sense of permission that actually it was okay to talk about LGBT plus lives and experiences and identities, because we're not promoting anything. We're not promoting being LGBT plus. That's silly. What we're doing is we're educating and informing about what it's like to be LGBT plus or have an LGBT plus parent or brother or sister or colleague.
How far do you think we've come in the last 10 years since you had that conversation in a school?
Well, I feel very hopeful that in the last 10 years, you know, myself and other organisations have worked with many, many thousands of young people and educators and parents and carers and teacher training establishments to take them on a journey towards positive, compassionate LGBT plus inclusion, because really what it's about is being kind and compassionate. That said, the world seems to be shifting around us at the moment, not always to a more kinder, compassionate place. So whilst I have huge hope for the young people that I've met and worked with, that I believe will go out into the world and strive to make it a safer place, I do have concerns for, well, some of my friends have been on the receiving end of hate crime on the transport network, whether it's because they're LGBT or whether it's because they speak in a different language. And that seems to be happening more, and that's a real worry to me.
Yeah, so speaking of that, here in London just last week we saw an incident with 2 girls being attacked on a bus, and the boys that were actually arrested for that were under the age of 18. How did that make you feel seeing that, and you know, what more do you think needs to be done for people of that age?
I was deeply saddened and obviously deeply concerned for the people that had affected. Was it a surprise to me? No, it wasn't, sadly, based on my own experiences in my friendship group over the last few years. But the fact that it was young people really resonated with me. And again, it just reminded me of why this work's so important. You know, we have to start from the very beginning, because some children already go to school and they know they've got same-sex parents, or they know they've got an older brother or sister who identifies as LGBT+. If we're not talking about these things from the very outset of education, we're acting with shame. We're acting as if there's something wrong with being LGBT+, and there isn't. So to prevent hate crime, to prevent these kinds of accidents, we need to make LGBT+ identities just part and parcel of the joyful diversity of human life, and that's what it is.
And what age do you think is the time that we should be talking to children about this?
Before children go to school. And from the very beginning. And that's not talking about anybody's sex life, which is a huge misconception. It's also not leading anybody to a path that will end up in them being LGBT+, because that's not what this work's about either. That's all what we might call fake news, I suppose, these days. What it's about is reflecting the natural diversity of human life. And if you think about it, when we're very young, we love to learn about animal diversity and geographical diversity, but for some reason when it comes to human beings, some people start to get scared, anxious and hateful.
Shaun